When most new traders open their first $100 account, they see a ticket to freedom, not a test of patience. The thought races through their mind. If I can just double it this week, maybe I'll quit my job next month. They watch charts like fireworks, chasing each spark, believing that speed equals success. But the market doesn't reward excitement, it rewards endurance. The truth hits harder than any loss. Turning a small sum into something life changing is never about luck or lightning moves. It's about time, repetition, and control. The faster you try to climb, the faster gravity pulls you back down. That $100 isn't your shortcut to wealth, it's your mirror. It reflects your habits, your fears, your discipline. You can treat it like a lottery ticket and lose it by Friday, or treat it like a seed, one that only grows if you water it with patience, consistency, and respect. The compounding mindset isn't about chasing fortune, it's about building it, brick by brick. It's the quiet understanding that real growth is never loud, never impulsive, never born from luck. It's the discipline to plant one small seed and let time become your partner instead of your enemy. Most traders want lightning. Compounding is rainfall, steady, nourishing, relentless. It doesn't dazzle, it builds. It's the mental shift from how fast can I win to how long can I sustain. Every choice, every trade becomes part of a system where patience earns more than aggression ever could. To think in decades instead of days is to free yourself from the trap of urgency. Compounding rewards those who can delay gratification, who see every small gain as momentum, not mediocrity. It's not just a financial principle, it's a philosophy of control. Each percent of progress, each disciplined moment becomes fuel for exponential growth. Picture a snowball rolling down a long hill. It begins small, slow, unremarkable, but as it moves, it gathers weight and speed until its power feels inevitable. That's compounding, a quiet revolution disguised as patience. In trading, this mindset transforms chaos into clarity, turning emotional impulses into strategic rhythms. The trader who embraces it stops chasing profits and starts building legacy. Evan stared at the calculator, tapping in the numbers almost skeptically. 5% a week? On a $100 account, that was just $5. It's nothing, he thought. But then he watched the curve unfold. Week after week, the line rose gently, almost shyly, until by the end of 5 years, that quiet $5 gain had become 10,000. He leaned back, realizing that the power wasn't in the number, it was in the patience behind it. That's the secret most traders never see. They're too busy chasing $50 wins today to notice the fortune they could have built tomorrow. Compounding is boring in the short term, almost invisible, but invisibility is its magic. It doesn't shout, it accumulates. Every small gain becomes the foundation for the next, each percentage feeding the next cycle. It's a dance between time and discipline. Evan imagined it differently now. Each $5 win was a brick day, and the years were mortar. The impatient tear down their walls looking for shortcuts, the wise keep building. In the late 1970s, a young trader named Richard Dennis turned $1,600 into hundreds of millions. But the secret wasn't magic, it was discipline. He followed his system with almost religious precision, never letting emotion interrupt the math. Each trade was just one step in a long sequence, one thread in a pattern he trusted completely. While others chased excitement, Dennis repeated his process like a craftsman shaping steel. Heat, hammer, cool, repeat. His story isn't about luck or talent, it's about respect for the process. He proved that mastery isn't built on speed, but on structure. Rules create freedom. Patience creates power. Evan once believed losing trades were personal failures. Each red candle felt like an accusation. But over time, he learned that emotional stability wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about not letting pain control him. Every trader faces the same storm: fear when losing, greed when winning, and the wild swings in between. The difference lies in how you steer through it. He began to treat each trade like a statistic, not a verdict. A loss wasn't disaster, it was data. Revenge trading lost its pull once he realized that discipline, not emotion, would bring him back to balance. He wrote one rule on a sticky note above his screen: I don't trade to feel better, I trade to execute better. True mastery, he discovered, is emotional silence, the ability to stay steady when everything around you shakes. Evan used to scroll through trading forums and social media, watching others post screenshots of massive wins. Each image whispered, "You're falling behind." But those snapshots were illusions, highlights without context. What he didn't see were the blown accounts behind the victories. Once he stopped comparing and started tracking his own progress, the pressure lifted. The only race worth running, he realized, was against his past self. Evan began treating his $100 account like it was a $1 million fund. Every trade had rules: risk 2%, reward 4%. He stopped guessing and started calculating. $2 on the line didn't feel like much, but the habit it built was priceless. Each click became a lesson in control, each win a reminder that discipline compounds faster than money. When he reached $500, his wins felt the same. Not louder, not riskier, just scaled versions of the same plan. He realized that the process never changes, only the zeros do. Respecting the small meant being ready for the big. That's the paradox of trading. The moment you stop treating small money like it's small, it begins to grow. Evan's account didn't expand because he took bigger risks. It grew because he stopped gambling and started operating like a professional. Evan no longer saw himself as a trader chasing wins. He saw himself as a builder. The compounding mindset had changed his identity. Every trade was no longer a gamble. It was a brick in a structure of discipline. Professionals think in probabilities and rules. Gamblers think in emotions and luck. The market punished one and rewarded the other. He stopped calling himself a risk taker. He became a risk manager. The moment he did, the chaos quieted, and trading stopped feeling like war. It felt like art. Patience, Evan discovered, was the hardest discipline of all. Anyone can enter a trade, but few can wait for the right one. The market rewards timing, not impulse. True power, he realized, wasn't in action. It was in restraint. Ruthless patience, he whispered one night, staring at a perfect setup that wasn't quite ready. Waiting became his new edge. Ruthless patience isn't gentle or passive. It's fierce restraint. It's the strength to stand still when everything inside you screams to move. Evan learned that the market seduces with motion. Every flicker of a candle is a whisper. Act now before it's too late. But he stopped listening. He realized that waiting was not weakness. It was dominance. In a world where everyone rushes, stillness becomes power. He began to see patience as active warfare against impulse. It wasn't about doing nothing. It was about doing nothing wrong. Every time he refused to chase, every time he let a setup pass because it wasn't perfect, he was sharpening his edge. The market rewards precision, not participation. Evan remembered a lesson from a mentor. If the market will still be here tomorrow, why should I rush today? That thought became a shield. He learned to value silence over noise, control over chaos. The charts were no longer a call to arms, but a landscape of probabilities, some fertile, some barren, and he would only move when the soil was ready. To outsiders, patience looked like hesitation. To him, it was preparation. Every waiting moment stored energy like a coiled spring. When the right opportunity appeared, he struck with clarity, not adrenaline. Ruthless patience, he realized, was the art of conserving energy until the odds whispered now. In 2003, there was a trader named Daniel Cross, known among his peers for an unusual rule. He never took more than 4 trades a month. To outsiders, it sounded lazy. But Daniel understood something most didn't. His system only produced 4 high-probability setups every 30 days. The rest of the time, he waited. For 23 days, 1 month, he didn't click the mouse once. His friends mocked him, calling him the statue. On day 24, his signal appeared. Clean, precise, undeniable. He entered, managed the trade flawlessly, and made more in that single position than the others made all month combined. When asked how he could wait so long, Daniel smiled and said, "The market will still be here tomorrow. My edge will too." Evan loved that story. It taught him that the patience wasn't passive, it was active waiting. He began practicing it himself. Sometimes he'd stare at charts for hours and do nothing. His mind would itch, his fingers would twitch, but he held the line. Doing nothing is still doing something, he reminded himself. Then came the harder lesson: waiting through loss. During a 3-week drawdown, Evan's confidence trembled. Every instinct told him to make it back fast. He could feel the pressure, the desperation, the urge to chase anything that moved. But he remembered what his mentor once said: patience isn't waiting quietly. It's waiting without breaking. So he stepped back, reduced position sizes, and kept following his plan. His reward wasn't instant. It came slowly in the form of restored confidence and cleaner trades. His win rate climbed, not because his strategy changed, but because his judgment did. He no longer saw missed trades as loss, he saw them as victories of restraint. By the end of that year, Evan realized ruthless patience wasn't about perfection. It was about consistency under pressure, the ability to do nothing until doing something actually mattered. He wrote a single sentence in his trading journal: if you can wait through boredom, fear, and noise, you can wait for profit. That truth became his compass, guiding every click that followed. Patience, Evan realized, was not just a trading skill, it was a worldview. It meant accepting that not every day was meant for profit, not every opportunity deserved action. In a world obsessed with movement, he learned to value stillness. Most traders lose not because they lack talent, but because they can't sit quietly when there's nothing to do. He noticed how impatience whispered lies. You're missing out. You're too slow. That setup might still work. And yet, every time he obeyed those voices, he lost more than money. He lost confidence. So he redefined winning. Success was no longer measured in pips or dollars, but in how well he preserved his mental capital. A trade avoided became just as meaningful as a trade won. There were days when he'd skip a setup that later ran perfectly. His mind would flash with the old pain of regret, but he trained himself to smile. Missing a winner isn't failure, he reminded himself. Breaking my rules is. The more he practiced, the easier it became. His patience grew roots, firm, unshakable. That mindset built the foundation for scaling. The same discipline that allowed him to protect $100 was the discipline that could handle $100,000. Growth wasn't about speed, it was about stability. Each small, deliberate decision added up to a stronger base. In the end, patience became his edge, his identity, and his armor, the quiet force that separated chaos from mastery. If there was one image that defined Evan's transformation, it was the lion in tall grass. The lion doesn't chase every antelope it sees. It waits, silent, watchful, calculating. It studies the herd, feeling the rhythm of movement, conserving its strength for the perfect moment. When that moment comes, the strike is swift, decisive, unstoppable. That was patience in its purest form. Not weakness, not hesitation, power held in restraint. Evan began to see this truth everywhere, in the markets, in life, in himself. The ones who rush burn out. The ones who wait rise quietly. He realized that patience wasn't about waiting for something to happen. It was about becoming the kind of person who could wait without breaking. Like the lion, he no longer hunted from fear of hunger, but from mastery of timing. The deeper Evan's patience grew, the more he saw what truly moved the market. Not price, but people. Charts weren't just patterns. They were reflections of emotion: fear, greed, hope, panic, painted in candles and wicks. One day he realized something profound. The market doesn't care about him. It doesn't reward effort or punish kindness. It simply mirrors back the truth of who he is in that moment: disciplined or impulsive, calm or chaotic. That realization was freeing. The market stopped being an enemy to fight and became a mirror to learn from. Detachment wasn't about apathy, it was about clarity, seeing the truth without distortion. Emotional attachment is the silent killer of traders. It begins small, a single loss that feels personal, like an insult to your intelligence. You think, I'll get it back. That thought is the spark. From it grows the fire of revenge trading, the desperate urge to erase pain with profit. Evan had seen it consume others. They didn't lose to the market, they lost to themselves. He remembered one trader, Liam Reyes, who once turned $5,000 into $40,000 in a few weeks. He bragged about his skill, his unbreakable system. Then one bad day wiped out a quarter of his gains. The loss wasn't fatal, but his pride was. He couldn't accept being wrong. He doubled his position, then doubled again. Within 3 days, his account was gone. When Evan asked what happened, Liam said quietly, I wasn't trading anymore. I was fighting. That line stayed with him. Revenge trading isn't strategy, it's emotional warfare. Every decision comes from the need to fix something inside you, not from logic. You stop analyzing the market and start pleading with it. You chase every flicker of movement, convinced the next trade will heal the wound. But the market doesn't care about your pain. It only reflects it back tenfold. Evan learned that ego feeds this cycle. The need to be right is stronger than the need to be profitable. It's the same ego that whispers, hold it, it'll come back, when the trade is already bleeding red. He realized that a humble trader who cuts losses fast will always outlast a proud trader who refuses to let go. There was a time Evan almost fell into that trap himself. After a week of losses, he caught himself staring at his screen, feeling heat rise behind his eyes. His heart raced, hand trembling over the mouse. Then a thought hit him. If I click now, I'm not trading. I'm reacting. He leaned back, closed his laptop, and walked away. That decision didn't make him money, but it saved his mind. Revenge trading, he realized, isn't about markets. It's about identity. When you trade to prove something to yourself or anyone else, you've already lost. Evan's breakthrough came when he finally stopped seeing trades as verdicts on his self-worth. He realized each position was just one grain of sand on an infinite beach, irrelevant alone, powerful only in accumulation. No single win proved he was right, and no single loss proved he was wrong. What mattered was process, executing the plan with precision, regardless of outcome. He began treating trading like a business. Losses weren't emotional failures, they were expenses, the cost of operation. Just as a restaurant throws away a spoiled ingredient, a trader accepts a small loss to protect the whole. The goal wasn't perfection, it was survival through discipline. Evan wrote a rule on his desk: follow the system, not your feelings. Every morning he read it out loud. When a trade went against him, he didn't flinch. He simply followed his stop loss and moved on. If a trade went in his favor, he didn't celebrate either. Detached neutrality became his superpower. He learned that emotional detachment doesn't mean not caring. It means caring about the right thing. You don't trade to feel good. You trade to follow your edge. The more you chase emotional comfort, the more you distort logic. When Evan embraced this mindset, everything slowed down. The noise faded. Charts stopped feeling personal. He no longer looked for validation from the market, only confirmation that he executed his plan correctly. It was freedom in the purest sense, freedom from ego, from fear, from the need to win every battle. In 2008, during the global financial crisis, Evan met a trader named Marcus Layton who had made over $400,000 shorting bank stocks. For 6 months, everything he touched turned to gold. But then, one brutal reversal cost him $50,000 in a single day. Instead of stepping back, Marcus tried to win it back. He doubled down, chasing every move the market made. Within 3 months, his profits vanished. It wasn't the market that beat me, he admitted later. It was the part of me that couldn't accept being wrong. That confession burned into Evan's mind. Emotional control, he realized, wasn't about avoiding losses. It was about accepting them without losing composure. Detachment was a shield, not indifference. Years later, he heard another story, this one from Chicago, 1995. A young options trader named David Harlan started with just $2,000. For months, he barely broke even. But what set him apart wasn't his strategy, it was his calm. He didn't chase wins or fear losses. Each trade was a data point, not a judgment. 6 years later, his account crossed $3 million. When asked how he did it, David said, "I stopped needing the market to make me feel good. I just needed it to follow the math." Evan saw the pattern. Those who controlled their emotions controlled their destiny. The market didn't reward brilliance, it rewarded composure. Evan learned that emotional detachment wasn't something you achieved once, it was something you trained daily. The first step was acceptance. Before every trade, he decided exactly how much he was willing to lose. If the plan said $50, he accepted it fully before clicking buy or sell. That way, when the loss came, it wasn't a surprise. It was simply the cost of doing business. The second step was letting go. Win or lose, the last trade was dead. The only one that mattered was the next one. He stopped replaying charts in his head, stopped analyzing what could have been. His focus shifted from results to execution. The third step was staying small. If a trade made him anxious, it meant he was risking too much. Emotional comfort became his barometer for proper sizing. The calmer he felt, the clearer he thought. Through repetition, detachment became habit. His trading journal showed fewer emotional notes, more measured reflections. Evan no longer traded to feel right, he traded to follow truth. With detachment came clarity, and with clarity, a new realization. The market was alive, always shifting, always testing. What worked yesterday might fail tomorrow. Evan understood that survival wasn't just about control, it was about evolution. He began to see adaptation as the next frontier of mastery. The disciplined mind must also be flexible. The trader who clings to one method eventually breaks, but the one who flows with the market endures. Adaptation wasn't weakness, it was intelligence in motion. Evans soon discovered that adaptation wasn't a choice, it was survival. The market rewarded those who evolved and punished those who clung to the past. Every new condition demanded a new version of himself. What worked last month could fail tomorrow. The traders who lasted weren't the smartest. They were the ones who could reinvent themselves endlessly. He called it relentless adaptation, the discipline of constant evolution. It wasn't about predicting the future perfectly, but about adjusting the moment the present changed. Flexibility wasn't a sign of weakness, it was strength in its most intelligent form. The real enemy of adaptation was ego. Ego whispered, "You've figured it out. You know how this works." It made traders fall in love with one method, one pattern, one belief, until the market flipped and humbled them. Evan learned to kill his ego daily, to question his assumptions, to treat every strategy like a tool, not an identity. He realized that stubbornness disguised as consistency was deadly. True consistency came not from repeating the same action, but from repeating the same principles: discipline, curiosity, humility. Every morning he asked himself, what is the market teaching me today? Some days the lesson was patience. Some days it was risk control. Some days it was to stay out entirely. The key was staying fluid, like water, able to take the shape of whatever the market demanded. To be relentlessly adaptive was to never stop learning, never stop adjusting, and never believe the game was mastered. Evan often thought about how nature mirrored the market. In the wild, survival didn't belong to the strongest or even the smartest. It belonged to the ones who adapted. Species that refused to evolve disappeared when their world changed. Traders were no different. The market was an ecosystem, constantly shifting in temperature, rhythm, and danger. Those who clung to comfort went extinct. He began studying markets the way a biologist studies life, observing patterns, reactions, and mutations. Every crash, every rally was a season in motion. The adaptable trader didn't fight the storm, he learned to sail with it. Just like the ocean, the market demanded respect. Arrogance was punished, flexibility was rewarded. To survive, Evan learned to flow like water, steady, formless, unstoppable, adjusting without resistance, thriving where others drowned. Adaptation, Evan realized, wasn't theory, it was a daily practice. Markets were living systems, and every day brought new conditions to navigate. Some weeks, volatility roared and opportunities flooded in. Other times, the market drifted sideways, slow and indecisive. A rigid trader tried to force trades in both. An adaptive trader adjusted, scaling risk when conditions were clear, preserving capital when they weren't. He began to treat his strategy like a living organism. When momentum returned, he shifted to short-term plays, quick and precise. When things turned uncertain, he became defensive, protecting his capital like oxygen. There was no shame in doing less. Sometimes, survival was the strategy. Adaptation also meant self-awareness. Some mornings his mind was sharp, disciplined, analytical. Other days, fatigue lingered, emotions hovered close to the surface. On those days, he reduced size or didn't trade at all. The adaptive trader didn't just adjust to the market, he adjusted to himself. Evan learned to read the subtle cues, not just price action, but energy, focus, and emotion. If his pulse quickened too easily, if a loss felt personal, he knew to step back. The key wasn't control, it was alignment. When the mind and the market moved in rhythm, everything flowed naturally. He wrote in his journal, "The market changes every day. So must I." Adaptation became his ritual. Before each session, he checked not only charts, but also his own state of mind. The question was no longer, can I win today? But am I prepared to respond correctly to whatever happens? That mindset turned trading into something larger. Not a battle for profit, but a dance between chaos and control. History, Evan realized, had already written the blueprint for survival. The great traders weren't prophets, they were adapters. One of his favorite examples was Marty Schwartz, the legendary pit bull. When markets changed, he didn't resist. He reinvented himself. He mastered new instruments, adjusted his risk profile, and learned fresh techniques long after others had given up. That willingness to evolve kept him winning, while rigid traders faded away. Evans studied their stories like sacred texts. Some thrived in chaos, others in calm, but all shared one trait: they refused to stay the same. Their edge wasn't one strategy, it was their mindset. They understood that growth required discomfort. He remembered reading about traders from the early 2000s who shifted from pit floors to digital screens. Those who adapted became pioneers of modern systems trading. Those who clung to the past vanished. The lesson was simple but brutal. Comfort kills progress. Evan began seeking discomfort deliberately. He tested new time frames, tried different markets, explored algorithms. Most of it failed, but each failure refined him. The more he adapted, the more his confidence came not from knowing, but from learning. Adaptation became his protection against irrelevance. In a world where the market could change overnight, his flexibility became his edge. Proof that survival favored the learner, not the knower. Adaptation wasn't a single act. It was a cycle of rebirth. Every stage of growth demanded a different version of Evan. The beginner who once feared losing $10 had to evolve into the trader who could calmly manage thousands. The skills stayed, but the mindset transformed again and again. He learned that the market didn't reward those who mastered one phase. It tested who could outgrow it. Each milestone carried a hidden expiration date. What once worked perfectly would one day stop. The traders who refused to evolve saw their confidence turn into chains. Evans started to view reinvention as part of his identity. He wasn't just a trader, he was a shapeshifter. When volatility changed, he changed with it. When his strategy lost edge, he rewired it. The process was uncomfortable but liberating. A constant shedding of old beliefs to make room for stronger ones. There were moments it felt like starting over, standing at square one after months of progress. But over time, he realized reinvention wasn't failure, it was refinement. Each version of himself carried the lessons of the last, sharper and wiser. True mastery, he discovered, wasn't about reaching a final form. It was about never being afraid to become someone new. Looking back, Evan saw that every breakthrough traced back to four unshakable pillars: discipline, patience, resilience, and adaptation. Discipline kept him consistent when emotion tried to take control. Patience allowed him to wait for opportunity instead of chasing it. Resilience gave him strength to recover when losses hit harder than expected. And adaptation, the final piece, kept him evolving when the game changed. Together, they formed more than a strategy. They became a mindset, a code for survival in chaos. The market wasn't something to conquer, it was something to harmonize with. Evan realized that mastery wasn't speed or size, it was steadiness. Those who lasted were those who respected the process, who grew slowly, methodically, and without ego. The trader who mastered these four cornerstones didn't need luck. He created longevity. Evan finally understood the market was never his enemy or his savior. It was a mirror reflecting his discipline, his fear, and his growth. Those who fought it burned out. Those who flowed with it found freedom. The journey from $100 to mastery wasn't about wealth. It was about transformation of mind, patience, and identity. If you could control yourself, the numbers would follow. So now, it's your turn. What's the biggest shift you've made in your trading mindset, and how has it changed your results? Share it below. Your insight might be the spark that helps another trader evolve.